All right, so we're diving into Zero to 100 today, this self-help book. Have you heard of it? By Dr. Jane Otonin.
I have, yeah.
You've sent over some excerpts, and honestly, I'm pretty intrigued. I mean, he sets this ambitious goal right off the bat, significant personal growth, but get this, in just 6 months.
Yeah, 6
It's
months.
like, is that even possible?
Yeah.
But he's not just throwing out motivational fluff, right? He actually gives you exercises, concrete stuff, and even whole programs to get you there.
He does. And that's what makes it stand out, I think. It's very action-oriented. It's not just, hey, dream big. It's here are the tools to actually make it happen.
I like that.
And it starts by tackling this belief that so many of us have, this idea that, we have all these limitations. But he's like, a lot of those limitations, we're putting those on ourselves.
Right, it's all in our minds.
Yeah.
And he uses this really interesting example. I don't know if you remember it. He talks about this dance club in England
Yes.
where every single person dancing is in a wheelchair.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And he uses that to illustrate that what we often think is impossible, maybe it's not. It might just be about shifting our perspective,
That's
right?
a powerful image.
Yeah. So, okay, he sets up this big idea, but then he gets really practical, which I appreciate. He lays out these foundations for success, and it's stuff we've all heard before, right? Sleep, exercise, finances.
Right.
But he kind of presents them in a way that feels, I don't know, fresher, more actionable.
And it's about understanding the why behind it all, right?
It's not just checking things off a list. It's like, this is why sleep is important for your well-being. This is why exercise, and then you build that solid base.
It's the foundation, like he said.
Yeah.
So let's start with sleep, because who couldn't use a little more of that?
Right.
One thing that surprised me was what he said about trying to catch up on sleep on the weekend. So I'm guilty of this, like, oh, I had a late one, I'll just sleep in on Saturday. But he's saying it's not really doing what we think it's doing.
No, and he actually cites some research that shows even if you've had a week of, let's say, poor sleep, even after 3 nights of sleeping what you would consider, normal, your brain still hasn't fully recovered.
Wow.
It takes much longer.
So it's really emphasizing that consistent sleep.
Consistency is key.
It matters.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from the more serious stuff either. He talks about the link between not sleeping enough, like chronically, and some pretty scary health problems, right? Heart disease, even certain cancers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And he really emphasizes those long-term impacts of sleep deprivation. But, it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Right.
He provides some really good tips for actually improving your sleep. One that stood out to me was keeping your bedroom temperature at 66 degrees.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for optimal sleep.
I've heard of a cool room, but I'm going to have to test that out, 66.
Yeah.
And he also says, and this is probably good advice, to try not to rely on sleeping pills.
Right, because it's not natural sleep, is it?
Yeah, it's not the same quality, he was saying.
Right.
Okay, so we've tackled sleep. Next up, everyone's favorite, exercise. But this isn't your typical, go hit the gym, feel the burn type of thing. Otonin highlights this fascinating link between exercise and, get this, brain power.
Yes. It's not just about the body, it's about the mind.
He even mentions a study with identical twins.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that. I missed that one.
One twin exercises regularly, and not only are they physically healthier, but they also have greater mental flexibility than their less active twin.
It's like a real-life brain booster.
Oh, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But here's the thing, and I think this is crucial. He emphasizes finding something you actually enjoy. So if you hate running, don't force yourself to run. Find something you like, whether it's dancing, hiking, whatever gets you moving.
I think it's that sustainability piece.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, you're going to stick with it. You're more likely to do it. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, lastly, let's talk money, finances, the topic I know everyone loves to think about.
The F word.
And Otonin, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He's like, look, financial responsibility is essential. Start saving early.
Yep.
Like, that's just crucial.
Solid advice, for sure.
But what I found really interesting was this concept he introduces of levels of economic freedom.
Oh, yes. Tell me about those. I remember those being really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to hear you explain it a little bit because I think it's something that could be super valuable.
Sure. So he breaks it down, right? He starts with basic financial security. Like, do you have enough to cover your basic needs?
Yeah.
Food, shelter, all that. Then he takes it all the way up to complete financial independence.
Which is basically your money is working for you. You're not working for your money. you've got that freedom.
That's the dream.
Right. And the cool part is he even gives you, like, calculations to figure out how much you need to invest to reach each of those levels.
That's so helpful, though, because it makes it less abstract, right? It's like, okay, here's what I need to do.
Exactly. It gives you a target, a roadmap.
Yeah, I love that.
It goes back to that empowerment, right?
Totally.
Giving you the control, the information you need to shape your financial future.
Yeah. It's not just about self-improvement. It's about freedom. Freedom to make choices.
Absolutely.
Okay, we covered those foundational elements, right?
Mhm.
The sleep, the exercise, the finances. But now I kind of want to get into some of the more, I don't know, unexpected stuff that he talks about.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this idea of visualization. It really caught my eye.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
He ties it to actual neuroscience.
Right.
Like when you're visualizing yourself doing something, you're actually creating new pathways in your brain.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like practice, but mental practice.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
mental rehearsal.
Yeah.
He talks about this study with piano players.
Okay.
And the ones who visualized playing, along with their actual practice, they learned faster than those who didn't.
Wow. So it's not just like wishful thinking. It's actually doing something.
It's powerful stuff.
So how do you actually do it? Like, does he give any tips on how to use visualization effectively?
He does. He has this whole step-by-step guide. And one of the things he emphasizes is engaging all of your senses, not just seeing it in your mind.
Oh, interesting.
So like imagine the sounds, the smells, even what it feels like emotionally to achieve that goal. Really get into it.
So it's like full immersion, but in your mind.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And he even says visualize the challenges, right? Like what could go wrong?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And how would you overcome those challenges? Because
Right.
that way you're kind of building resilience, right? You're almost preparing for those obstacles.
It's like you're one step ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we got to talk about habits because, I mean, who isn't trying to break a bad habit or start a good one?
Right, we all got them.
And he breaks down the science of it
He does.
into this 4-stage cycle.
He does. It's cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay, break that down for me a little bit.
So basically something happens, right? There's a cue, which triggers a craving. Then you respond to that craving, and that's your habit. And then you get a reward, which reinforces the whole cycle.
Oh, okay, so it's like a loop.
It's a loop. And what he emphasizes is that even tiny changes in those habits can make a big difference over time.
It's like the compound effect, right?
Exactly, exactly. It all adds up. And he tells this great story about running in a hailstorm. I don't know if you remember that one.
No, tell me about it.
So he's out running, and this hailstorm starts, right?
Oh, no.
And most people would probably stop, be like, okay, I'm done. This is miserable. But he uses it. He's like, this is a chance to build mental toughness.
I like that.
Right. And he keeps going.
Turn it into a positive.
Exactly. And he have this exercise for readers where you list out all your habits, the good ones, the bad ones, just to kind of become aware of them.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Because sometimes we do things we're not even conscious of them.
All right.
So just becoming aware of it is a good first step.
Yeah, self-awareness is huge.
It's huge.
Okay, we have to talk about procrastination because I feel like this is a big one for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He says like 89% of people struggle with it.
89%.
Yeah, in at least one area of their
I
life.
feel like we're almost programmed to procrastinate.
It's so common, right?
It is.
But he has this interesting take on how to overcome it. And it's about finding your why.
Ooh, okay, I like that already.
Like, why do you want to achieve this goal?
It can't just be like, I should do this. It's got to be something more.
It's got to be deeper than that, yeah. And he tells this really touching story about a father who finally quit smoking. Not because of the health risks, but because his daughter begged him to, said she didn't want him to die.
Oh, wow.
And that emotional connection, that was it for him.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just about willpower. It's about connecting to something deeper.
Exactly, exactly.
He also mentions this tool called the accountability contract, and it sounds intriguing. Have you ever used one of those?
I have. They can be really helpful. Basically, it's a formal agreement, either with yourself or with someone else, that outlines your goal, the timeline for achieving it, and what happens if you don't follow through.
Okay, so there are some stakes involved.
Yeah, you're putting something on the line.
So it keeps you accountable.
Exactly. He gives the example of Will Smith. I thought that was a good one.
Okay, what did Will Smith do?
He wanted to lose some weight. So he made a contract with a friend, and he had to pay him a certain amount for every pound he didn't lose.
Oh, wow. That's motivation.
Right. Talk about high stakes.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. But it worked. And it's the same kind of psychology behind like late fees
Oh, interesting.
or gym memberships.
It's true.
We're more likely to follow through if there's a consequence for not doing it.
We don't want to lose money.
Exactly.
It makes sense. Okay, we've covered so much already. We talked about visualization, habits, procrastination, but I'm really eager to hear about these 6-month programs he talks about, because it seems like that's where he takes all these insights and actually gives you a way to implement them.
Yeah, it's putting it all into action, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about it, it's another to actually do it. And these programs, they're designed to help you make real progress in specific areas of your life. And they're all structured around this 6-month time frame.
So these programs, it's like here's where the rubber meets the road, right? We've talked about all these concepts, but this is where you actually apply them. And you mentioned he's got programs for all sorts of
He
things.
does, yeah, a whole range. There's one for behavior change, one for fitness, even one for writing a book. That one caught my eye.
That's so cool. And I feel like, given everything we've talked about today about building habits, overcoming procrastination, all that good stuff, you'd probably be drawn to that behavior change one, right?
It does seem right up my alley, doesn't it? And I think it really gets at the heart of what Otonin is all about, transformation. Like,
Yeah.
how can you actually become a better version of yourself? And he gives you really practical strategies to do that, to build those good habits, ditch the bad ones, that kind of thing.
So how does it work? Where do you even begin with something as big as behavior change?
Well, he starts with self-reflection. He has you pick like 12 key behaviors you want to focus on over those 6 months.
Okay.
And the beauty of it is it's totally personalized.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to be a better listener, or maybe you want to be more assertive, or just like be more present in your everyday life. It's really up to you.
I like that it's self-directed. You figure out what you want to work on. So you pick your 12 behaviors. What's next? Do you just jump right into changing them?
Not quite. First, he has you assess where you're at right now. So for each of those behaviors, you rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10,
Okay.
which gives you a baseline,
Yeah.
so you can see how far you've come. He even suggests getting feedback from like friends or colleagues, people you trust, to get a more well-rounded picture.
That's smart because we can be our own worst critics, right? Or maybe
Wow.
we don't see things clearly. So having that outside perspective is really valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you've set your baseline. Now the real work begins. How do you actually go about changing those behaviors? That's the million-dollar question.
It is. And he gives you a whole toolbox of techniques. One that really resonated with me was his emphasis on replacing bad habits with good ones. So instead of just trying to like stop doing something cold turkey, you're focusing on building a new positive habit to take its place.
Right, so it's not just about willpower. It's about like redirection almost.
Exactly. And it just seems more sustainable that way, right?
Totally.
Like instead of just trying to stop being late all the time, maybe you focus on becoming more organized, more proactive with your time.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Right.
It's like you're creating a new pathway instead of just like constantly trying to avoid the old one.
Exactly. And he also talks about setting realistic goals, like don't try to change everything overnight. Break those big goals down into smaller, manageable steps. And he gives you a ton of encouragement and tips on how to stay motivated because let's face it, it's not always easy.
No, it's not. But that's life, right? It's a journey. There are going to be bumps in the road. But I think that's what's so great about this book and what we've talked about today. It's like it gives you a roadmap, it gives you tools, and it reminds you that you're not alone in this journey.
That's a great point. We all need that reminder sometimes that everyone's struggling with something.
Exactly. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive, I have to say. We've covered so much ground. We talked about the science of sleep, the power of visualization, habits, finances, even those levels of economic freedom. It's a lot to digest, but it's all so interesting. And it all ties back to this idea of taking control of your life, right? Of becoming the best version of yourself.
It does, yeah. It's very empowering. And it's never too late to start, right?
Absolutely not. So if you're listening to this and something's resonated with you, I highly recommend checking out 0 to 100. It's a fantastic read, very practical, lots of actionable advice. And as we wrap up here, I'll leave you with this thought. If you could achieve anything in the next 6 months, what would it be? And what's one tiny step, just one, that you can take today to move in that direction? Don't wait for someday, make it today.